Peter and the apostles were the first pope, the first bishops. It was their responsibility to share the gospels with others, to teach us about Jesus, to baptize, to celebrate the Mass, and to forgive sins. And that's exactly what they did. Several years ago, there was a massively popular video on YouTube where a spoken word artist outlined the reasons he loves Jesus but hates organized religion. And many people agreed with him. That's why it was so popular. They recognized that there is value to having faith in God, having faith in Jesus. But they had a hard time with the church and with organized religion. It might seem to us sometimes like what the church is and what the church does makes little sense. She's not democratic. There are hypocrites. And what she expects of her members is difficult. It's hard to live up to. Who would want to dedicate their lives to this kind of a thing, to this kind of a community? Now, this video inspired fantastic video responses from faithful people like Father Claude Burns and Bishop Robert Barron. I'll leave links to their videos, to their answers in the description below. And although I'm a little late to the game, I wanted to offer my own thoughts for those of you who might wonder if you love Jesus, but you have a hard time loving the church. Now, to be clear, when we talk about the church like this, people aren't usually talking about the church building where they gather for Mass every Sunday. It's not comments about art or architecture or music. It's also not usually a comment about the kind of community that meets in these churches either. It's a comment about the leadership structure that we follow, the Pope and the bishops and their teachings, the things that they pass on to us. Is it possible to love Jesus without loving those? And I would say no, you can't. One of the images that St. Paul uses to describe the relationship between Jesus and the church in Ephesians chapter 5 is that of a bride and groom. We the church, are the bride and Jesus is the groom. Paul challenges husbands like me to love our wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now, if you told me that you liked me, but you hated my wife, we'd have a problem. She's part of me. I swore myself to her, to love her and honor her all the days of my life. So being in a relationship with me necessarily means that at the very least you have respect for her. But it goes beyond that. How did Jesus love the church? How did he give himself up for her? Well, he suffered and he died out of love for the church. You can look at Jesus' own words. He talks about the church. In Matthew 16:18, he tells Simon, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. He leaves directions for the church too. In Matthew 28, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I've commanded you. In Luke, Jesus tells the apostles, do this in remembrance of me. In John, if you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained. Jesus wasn't leaving his followers to fend for themselves. He leaves us a structure by which we would continue to be guided throughout history. Peter and the apostles were the first pope, the first bishops. It was their responsibility to share the gospels with others, to teach us about Jesus, to baptize, to celebrate the Mass, and to forgive sins. And that's exactly what they did. What's gone on in unbroken succession for 20 centuries. Now, this reality builds on the history of Israel throughout the Old Testament. There was never a moment in history where God asked his people to fend for themselves. Judaism, the religion Jesus was brought up in, is a ritualized religion. We see God's work with people in the Old Testament as a preparation and practice for what was to come in New Testament times. We see that both Israel and the church have visible human leadership. There's common rituals for worship, and what we believe, what we're all about, we share this in common too. That's what the church, that's what the Pope and the bishops do today. They oversee it, they guide it, they teach it to us. To say that you love Jesus but not religion, or I'm spiritual but not religious, I'd say that's a contradiction. It means that you love Jesus, which is great, but you don't really pay attention to what he taught. If I want to have a relationship with Jesus, I need to listen to him. I need to listen to what he said about religion and the church. I'd say that trying to have one without the other is like trying to have a relationship with Jesus without the demands or challenges that come from that very relationship. Now, if this is you love Jesus, but you struggle with the church, I'd encourage you to take this to prayer. Read the passages where Jesus and St. Paul talk about the church. I'll leave those in the description below too. Look at the lives of the saints whose heroic virtue stands out a whole lot more than the shortcomings of Over the years that I have studied and I have worked for the church, have come to love the Catholic Church deeply. And the more that I know, the more that I understand it, the more that I value what she teaches. I'm praying that you can find the same thing too, and come to love Jesus and come to love his church.